I assume that they're under all other European countries.
What about the rest of the world, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's Serbia. But still, they were a major power.
Even if you're not going to be involved, you need to be
Well, and do you think you can always choose not to be involved?
But why?
Geographically without Europe, do you think it's possible?
Why?
Like Germany to be like that?
and then if you have like chemical weapons, right?
Number one, because GDP is up there. That's not this. I mean, this is the industrial revolution. It makes perfect sense.
I don't know, I'm looking at that.
In fact, one of the high school students was about
One more minute, wrap up the conversations you guys are having with your group, and then we're going to share our observations with the whole class.
Yeah. I mean, either way, interesting part is all other European countries.
December.
I didn't really know it's not.
Yeah, that one's kind of good. If you're a little country, and you tried to.
And going back to the same thing, inevitability, again, do you guys have a consensus of whether or not Austin has to address? Yeah. Some of the other things that Robin mentioned, share out, or,
I mean, down to
Yeah, I would say there's something else where it's gonna make it more and more evident that somebody was the one who more they have all these things that are
I mean, when you look at them too, like the indicators,
Right.
Because they went.
I guess
how it was fighting.
yeah.
Or maybe like somebody
Alright guys, now what we're going to do is we're going to switch it up. Now we're going to, alright everyone, yo. Thank you. Alright, everyone, teachers back up here, everyone's conversations. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to share these observations that we've talked about with our groups, table by table by table, right? So I'm going to start with this table over here. What were some of the observations that you noticed about the expenditures of armaments over the course of a few years?
Well, I believe what we were talking, one of the things we mentioned were that the Allies, Great Britain, France, and Russia were spending a lot more money than solo Germany.
Okay.
Their military expenditures dramatically increased compared to Germany until 1913 when they tripled or increased by a third.
What are some reasons for that? Why do you think that is?
They were responding to German aggression.
Okay, so it's a
fear and German military expansion.
So it's a race to keep up, basically. If someone else is spending more money on armaments, I need to do it too. Okay, very good. How about this table over here?
Personally, I think one of the most interesting numbers was the total of like Europe and the US to the rest of the world too, or like total European powers to all other European countries, like how much more they were spending.
like the big five are spending like more than 3 times as much as everybody else on the continent of Europe is spending, which I think if I lived in one of those little countries, I would scare the piss of that. I'd be very scared of that.
So I like
why they're increasing their spending to be the smaller ones.
So I like that analysis and observation because it kind of feeds into our central question of why the war is inevitable. So if some countries are increasing their expenditures more quickly than others, what does that say about their attitude towards conflict and their attitude towards the potential of a conflict breaking out?
They're ready.
They're ready, right? And other countries maybe are not as ready or didn't see it coming. Cool. Yes?
Wait, but I don't get this because you all are saying they're increasing, but if you look, all the numbers are going down. Like, if you look at Great Britain, it just goes down. All of them, what are you guys talking about? They're all going down.
We looked at that in this group as well, and I admitted, actually, the first time I saw this, I was confused by that too. But if we check carefully the top line, interestingly, the dates are going backwards. So we should clarify that.
So you want to start with the column that's furthest to the right, because that column is the earliest year, right, that there's data for. And then you look at it from right to left in order to figure out how much it's either going up or down over the course of the given years, right? So if you look at 1908, for most of those countries on there, their expenditures for armaments are going to be lower than in 1909. So you have to look at it from right to left. That's probably something we should have made a little more clear.
Thank you for bringing it up, Hillary.
So, last table, any observations?
I think everyone pretty much said it.
Okay.
Do you have nothing that you want to input from the?
Well, somebody subtly mentioned that Austria-Hungary isn't mentioned, and they were one of the big parts of the Triple Entente, and it's interesting that they wouldn't be involved. But I think it also makes sense that Great Britain was spending so much, because like the video said, their empire encompassed a quarter of the globe, so they would have to spend a bunch of money in order to maintain that.
Very good. I want to go to the next slide really briefly, because I want to talk about question 3 on the sheet in particular, right? So what do you think these countries, first of all, what do you think these countries are doing with this money? What do you think they're spending it on specifically? Are they spending it on tanks? Are they spending it on uniforms? Are they spending it on guns? What do you think they're spending it on specifically? Yes, Steve.
Planes, tanks, and automobiles.
Planes, tanks, and automobiles.
No, just industry research and general armament, tanks, weapons, chemical warfare, things like that.
Okay. Avi?
Maybe the Russians are spending it on chariots.
Okay. That's a good point, right? These countries may not have been on the same level of technological advancement. They may not all have the same technology, so what they're spending it on may have differed, right? That's a good point. Dan?
Well, like Britain's like an island, so they're probably gonna spend all their money on ships.
Good. Real quickly, I want to go to the next slide. So these are the dates that these technologies were first introduced into battle, right? Into the front. But what, when technologies are developed, some of you may be working already, you guys are still in high school, so some of you may be working, some of you may not. So I want to go over this in some detail. When new things are researched and developed, are they researched and discovered instantly, or are they researched and discovered over time? Over time? Good. Okay, so when you're allocating money for the research and development of these products, is that money just given instantly, or is it sometimes given over time? Over time, right? So if the money is given for these research and development of these things over time, does that have any correlation, or does that impact the amount of money that they're spending, or the increase that they're spending in armaments year per year? Yes? No? Maybe so? Okay, so I would argue that it does affect the data in front of you, right? So one of the reasons why the numbers keep going up year per year per year is that these new technologies are very expensive to research, they're very expensive to develop. They have trials where the technologies don't always work right away. Sometimes they fail, they have to start from scratch. And so the cost of researching and developing these new technologies is reflected in the data that shows that expenditures are increasing in armaments over time. Some of this increase in armaments was due to research and development of these various technologies.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Mr. Goldman. So what we're doing here, if you, Mr. Ray, could you flip back to that last slide? So looking at some of these, I guess you could say military toys that we have up here. Like I said, like Mr. Goldman said, it touches on the progress of technology at the time. Well, looking at the size and the effectiveness of these weapons, it adds to the tragic element of the war, in that there was a revolution in firepower and there was a lack of progress in terms of troop mobility. So touching on that, we're going to flip into an inquiry activity where we're actually going to look at one of the more tragic facets of World War I, which was the trenches, which were supposed to kind of keep the soldiers safe, which ended up being traps for disease and uncomfortability on the behalf of the soldiers. So with that said, we're gonna dive into an inquiry activity. The groups up here are gonna have to be restructured a little bit. So don't mind handing those out. Sure. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep this group here. Sabrina, can I get you and Hillary to work together? Do you mind? And you guys will take group, so this is what we'll do. We'll do group number 1 here. So you got document number 1, document number 2, document number 3, and then Sabrina and Hillary are gonna take document number 4, okay? And like I said, you guys have all done an inquiry activity before. We are going to reference the graphic organizer that we have up front. Your documents are on the back. And what we're going to do is we are going to work in our groups for roughly 5 minutes to answer the questions for your appropriate document. Then we're going to come together, groups will share their ideas, and then we'll have the other groups chime in as we go along. Sound good? All right, so let's dive into it.
Did you say we were 2?
You were group 2, group 3, 1, 4. Beautiful.
I'm not happy.
Not happy?
No.
Why not?
My name is misspelled.
On the board?
Yeah.
That's me. That's me.
That was autocorrect.
Some teachers are up late sometimes, and they make mistakes, just like students.
We're human too. Try to believe.
Sorry, Jasmine.
Yes.
Let me know if you guys have any questions.
It's the.
Oh, I was like, what is that? Hear it? Like, I'd like to, that's not what I'm
It's mostly just like,
That's
that's the
what
dumbest
Start
thing you
seeing
can
like
do.
if the war goes on.
And if you
start
did
seeing
that
they
dumb thing,
get
you
hair
wouldn't even feel it, and then I feel it.
I think it was maybe like, didn't something happen to like,
Yeah, sure. That's,
So how does that,
the one thing,
How does that impact, how does that impact the way that the boy fans watch it?
well, there's no like money to steal. It's really difficult. So you're stuck in there, and your feet are right on your legs. And then somebody's like, you have to run before your legs, try to get shot by all the boards.
I really like
There's possibilities in this.
I just feel like I'm always have to be prepared.
I don't know, is this,
technology, managing your life.
If we're gonna go around, that'd be somewhere, and the last year.